Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second. We're doing it early today because I'm not around tomorrow.
Make sure I'm a little centered here. Move my camera over a little bit.
Chilling on my end. Hang on.
My room is so much brighter than your room.
It is, yeah. It's all pretty grey today. All right, I'm ready to go when you are.
Yep, I am now recording.
I'm now recording.
All right, and 3, 2, 1. Where's your goddamn clap?
Did clap.
You were muted or something. I didn't hear anything. All
Oh.
right, 3, 2, 1. I'm still not hearing your clap at all.
I don't know what you want from me. It's coming up on my end.
Okay.
Oh, it isn't.
Anyway.
Oh, it isn't coming. What the hell?
Yeah.
I don't know what's causing that. Has Skype got a new thing where it's like muting the audio?
You're hearing my clap, right?
Yeah, I'm hearing yours. What the hell? Uh.
I mean, I do have noise reduction, so maybe you have it on.
Oh yeah, Skype does have one. Let me turn it off now. Let's see if this fixes it. The hell? That's not changed it.
I mean, it's
I
showing
have
up in your recording, right? So that's all that
no, it's
matters.
not. It's not showing up in the recording. That's the thing. I have
Oh,
no idea what's causing that. I
all
haven't
right. How
installed.
about you just say clap?
Oh yeah, okay, all right.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Clap.
Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 307 for April 6th, 2023. Hey everyone, Dino Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. We are doing this a day early because in the UK, there is a quote unquote holiday on Friday and Monday. I'm putting them in quotes because it's like a banking holiday. Is that what it is, Zach?
Yeah, Good Friday and Good Monday, I think it's called.
Yeah, okay. We don't get those in the US. Banking holidays are weird in the UK. You get way too many of them. But enjoy your 4-day weekend. As a result, we're going to be doing the podcast, as I said, a day early. So this week we'll be talking about the Surface Dock, quote unquote, 3, more quotes going on. Yes, Microsoft announced a new Surface Dock. Of course, we technically beat them to the punch because of Zach's nice finds on eBay. We'll talk about Windows 10X on Surface Duo briefly because that's a thing now for some, big nerds. Bing Chat is in Edge Mobile, kind of. It's technically there. You just need to enable it, and I'll talk about how to do that. The outlook for Windows updates. Zach is going to talk a little bit about what's going on with Windows updates. Asus ROG Ally. So this was actually one of the worst announcements ever by Asus, a company who regularly does terrible things when it comes to PR. They announced this on April 1st, and so everybody thought it was a joke, and it's not. It's a handheld gaming device. We'll briefly talk about that and why it's kind of cool. And will it give the Steam Deck a run for its money? We'll go over some reviews, including a brand new AMD desktop processor. And if we have time, the thing of the week. I actually have a bunch of movies I can recommend because I've been going on my 1970s dystopian movie binge, and I have some good ones to recommend. Ones that I'm pretty sure most of you haven't heard of before, maybe have not seen. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But Zach, how are you doing on this fine Thursday as you prepare for your lucky 4-day weekend?
I am very good. I'm very excited for the long weekend, actually. I'm going to make the most of it and just relax, I think. I am surprised that America doesn't have a similar thing for Easter. Like, America's quite religious, aren't they? They're very Christian.
It's true. We do,
driven.
well, because it's on a Sunday, so everybody gets Sunday off. My gym closes at noon on Sunday, so, some places do close for the Sunday thing. But yeah, there's no Monday, and Good Friday is not. Good Friday is celebrated here, but yeah, people don't get it off. So yeah, it's kind of weird. We're pretty selective on our Christian holidays, apparently, that we decide to give days off for. Plus, in America, no one takes time off. That's our thing, I guess. But yeah.
Fair enough.
All right. We're known to be workaholics, so which is not good for our health,
Right.
which is why I believe our was it the average age that people live to has actually declined in the last few years. So
Well,
we're not going in.
not good.
Yeah, part of it was COVID, part of it's guns, part of it is fentanyl. and part of it's probably just poor healthcare. Yeah, so not everything's going great in America, but our food is awesome, and I challenge anyone. Even every night I watch TV, I'm like, ooh, I wish I had a Sonics near me. But anyway, let's talk about Microsoft. Surface Dock, quote unquote, 3 is here. It's not really the Surface Dock 3. In fact, its name is called Surface Thunderbolt. Was it Surface 4? Surface Thunderbolt 4 Dock.
That's right.
I believe its name. And that name should be the big spoiler alert about what's different here. Zach, why don't you walk us through what actually happened in terms of you breaking the story and then what happened the next day?
Yeah, well, we had sort of talked about this, I think, in last week's podcast or in a previous podcast in the last few weeks, that Microsoft was planning to ship a new Surface Dock soon, and then it sort of appeared on eBay. Now, I have a thing for finding these sort of things on eBay. I'm able to search far and wide for prototypes of Microsoft products, and I came across this. The only reason I came across it is because luckily I'd seen it before in images, so I was able to identify it and go, oh, that's the next Surface Dock. So I was like, well, I guess it's technically leaked now. Let's write it up. And so that's what I did. I wrote it up as, hey, this is the next Surface Dock. It's Thunderbolt 4 powered, this, that, and the other. And then not even 24 hours later, Microsoft announced it officially. So it isn't, as Dan mentioned, not technically the Surface Dock 3. That's not its name, although it is the third generation Surface Dock of this form factor. They've changed the name because it's kind of not exclusive to Surface Docks, to Surface PCs anymore. The biggest change with this, well, the biggest change is its design, but along with it is the Surface Connect cable, I guess, has been replaced with USB-C, which means it works on not only Surface PCs now, but non-Surface PCs. You could use this with a Dell or a HP, and ideally, if you're using a Thunderbolt port, it should be fully functional and function like it would on a Surface. So that's an interesting change, which we'll talk about in a second. I just want to get through some of the other specs here. So yes, as I mentioned, it's Thunderbolt 4. All of the USB ports on the dock are Thunderbolt 4 capable, which supports data transfer speeds of up to 40 gigabits per second, power of up to 96 watts, and has additional power for charging other accessories. It also has 3 USB-A ports, a 3.5mm headphone jack, and a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port as well. So more or less the same port layout on the back as the Surface Dock 2. On the front, they've swapped out one of the USB-C ports for a USB-A port, and they've also made the dock a lot thinner. The Dock 2 was actually quite thick, as you can see here. But they've basically shaved off the top and bottom, so now it's mostly just the ports rather than there being excess space around the ports. So, yeah, that's the TLDR for the Surface Dock, Surface Thunderbolt 4 docks. Sorry, should I say? But yeah, let's talk about the change in cable. Like they're moving away from Surface Connect. Dan, what do you think? What are your thoughts on them moving away from Surface Connect for this?
Yeah, so I think, a lot of people may look into this maybe a little too much, that Microsoft is going to move away from Surface Connect for its actual devices. I don't think we've seen any evidence to suggest that's true. As every time they've talked about Surface Connect, they've been very bullish on it and said, no, they're very happy with it. Customers really enjoy it. Plus, customers are now getting the best of both worlds, right? Laptop Studio has 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports plus the Surface Connect. And so I don't know why they would need to maybe add, get rid of Connect and go with a third Thunderbolt 4 port. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be a bad thing, but I kind of like Surface Connect on their devices. It's convenient, it's going to work well and all that kind of stuff. So the reason I think they're doing this is because, the obvious here, by going Thunderbolt 4, it opens it up to other devices. And in these times with Microsoft's Surface division, they got hit hard, just like everybody else did, in terms of PC laptop sales plummeting, partly because of macroeconomic conditions, partly because a lot of people bought some already, and that's just sort of the market cycle. I should mention, and we could have done this as a separate section, but I'll just talk about it briefly here as a tangent, that MacBooks have also apparently plummeted in sales. So much so that Apple reportedly, according to a report coming out of South Korea, halted production of its M2 processors for the MacBooks for all of January and February. So completely halted them. They have since started up production again, but only at half capacity of what they were previously. And assuming that report is true, it suggests that Apple's facing the exact same issue here. I would say also Apple has another problem, which is the processors are so kind of good I think people are going to keep those laptops for a very long time and won't upgrade them anytime soon. Uh, that's good and bad news if you're Apple, right? Yeah, you got happy customers. The bad news is those customers aren't going to get a new laptop now for like 5 or 6 years at least. So Microsoft is facing this issue here, and making something like a Thunderbolt or any kind of Surface dock when the market's already kind of not doing great for Surface. It's a bigger risk if you just make it exclusive for Surface. And I'm not sure the benefits there, are great. But if you make a Thunderbolt 4, yeah, in theory, anybody can buy this. Enterprises can buy this for all sorts of other devices. It gives more opportunities. I also want to just talk about price because it's $300, and I saw a lot of people like, "Oh my God, wait till it goes on sale," and all that's so expensive. If you think that's expensive, you're telling me you never actually bought a Thunderbolt 4 dock before, because that is not. It's not cheap. I'm not saying like quantitatively. It is an expensive accessory. Relatively, no, it's not. So Thunderbolt 4 docks start around $230 or $240. That's about the cheapest you'll find them. The number one we recommend, which I forgot its name now, in our guide, costs $400. So they arrive at $300. And like Razer's Chroma one, I believe, is around $300 too, because it has Chroma and all this kind of stuff. So they're not pricing this like super Surface tax or anything like that. I'm not saying it's a bargain either.
Right.
But what differentiates the price in these is what they offer in terms of port selection. They vary greatly, by the way, because like something like the one that's $400 is it offers micro SD and full SD card slots, headphone speaker out, and a bunch of ports. And I think it's 98-watt power pass-through. So it just offers a lot more expandability and ability plus power in this good device that also performs well. This is another thing that people sort of overlook, that people who actually buy Thunderbolt ports know. They're not all reliable. I know it's Thunderbolt 4, it's a standard, and you think that like, okay, so they should just all work. Go read the reviews. So the Dell Thunderbolt 3 dock on their own website has like 2.5 stars. They've had issues with them because sometimes the like Dell or Lenovo will try to sort of optimize them for their own devices, and then they kind of come up and people have had issues with them where you connect it and it doesn't connect and there's driver issues. And so they're not all created equal. They're not all reliable. They don't all offer the same ports. Another thing, like, so that Dell version has 2 display port outputs on the back, and its Type C's are just Type C. Surface Dock, the new one, has 2 Type C's on the back, but they're full Thunderbolt 4 with 15 watts. So it depends on how you want to connect your displays up to this thing. If you have a brand new, almost all new monitors today offer Type C connectivity, and people kind of prefer them. They're smaller wires, they're thinner wires, a lot easier to manage. Display ports are kind of big and chunky. Display port has advantages, of course, too, but it depends on what your setup is like, do you need micro SD or an SD card reader? Some people do want that, in which case a Surface one may not be for you. Some people want Razers, they want to light up to match their whole RGB station. Totally understandable. It's a really cool one. So you want the RGB, right? The Surface one also has 96-watt power pass-through. So the ones that are like $230 offer 65-watt power pass-through. So that's an important thing, because if you're connecting up your laptop to it, if you're using just a straight-up Ultrabook, 65 watts is fine. If you're using something with a lot more CPU power, you're going to want 96 watts to pass through. That also means that the power brick is going to be bigger too, right? So all this stuff is important, and what separates the pricing on this stuff. So I would actually say this offering that they have is actually right in line of where that pricing should be. They also have a screw on the bottom, which is not for a tripod. It's meant for a specific type of mount you can get for your desk to mount this thing in the air kind of thing. It looks really kind of neat. You also have a Kensington lock, right? So not all these things have Kensington locks. If you're a consumer, do you need Kensington lock? No. If you're working in an office and enterprise is buying a bunch of these, do you want a Kensington lock, which prevents people from stealing it? Yeah, you're going to want that. So that's just my little rant here about the pricing of this stuff. It's not extraordinarily priced. It's not cheap, but like you can go buy a Type C dock for 40 or $50. Sure. That's good if you're just connecting up like accessory peripherals, a mouse, a USB thumb drive, um, and basically that's it, right? And a couple other things,
Yeah.
maybe one monitor, right? You'll get one monitor. This one you can do two 4Ks at 60 hertz, one 8K at 60 hertz, or one 4K at 120 hertz. You can't do that with the Type Cs, right? Just the Type C one. So it depends on what you want out there. If you just want to connect a couple accessories to your laptop, maybe a single regular display, yeah, get the Type C one. But if you're going to want to connect up multiple displays at a 4K or higher refresh rates, plus speakers, plus maybe headphones, plus a bunch of other accessories, as well as recharging your laptop, all with one single Type C cable, yeah, the Surface Dock is actually a really nice solution. So
The
that's going to
only
be the big difference there.
the only complaint I have about the Surface Thunderbolt 4 dock, also known as Surface Dock 3, and all of the Surface Docks have had this, and I don't know why. It's so frustrating when you're using it with a Surface laptop or like a laptop studio or something. It's fine with a Surface Pro, but with a Surface laptop or laptop studio, why isn't there a power button on the dock to wake the laptop up? Because I was using this thing. So basically my laptop would sit in there closed, and then it would be docked up to the monitor. Obviously when the laptop goes to sleep, sometimes it goes into, I don't know, hibernate, I guess. So shaking the keyboard and mouse won't work. It won't wake it. So to turn it back on, I have to take it out of this stupid thing, open the laptop, and usually opening the lid will actually wake it from sleep. But that's so annoying. Let me just press a button on the dock. And I think Dell has a one with a power button on the dock, which will wake it from sleep.
I think so, but I think this is one of those. I don't think that's an officially supported feature.
Maybe not.
I agree it's a very convenient feature.
Yeah.
I believe that's where like Dell's drivers come into play, and where sometimes people will. But you're right. I mean, so a lot of people leave their laptops open with the display open, and then you can just hit the power button, right? But you're right. It would be kind of convenient for the dock. On the other hand, a lot of people put these docks like behind their monitor, or they kind of want them out of the way. Some people want them more forward if you're going to be like plugging stuff in or out. But some people want it behind the monitor, out of the way, cables hidden, and you just have a one Type C cable that comes out, which you just plug into your laptop, and a clean setup. So yeah, again, this is what comes down to, when you're buying one of these docks, what do you want? Some of the one that's like $400 is going to be better suited if you want it forward, because you're going to be throwing in, say, your SD cards for doing photos, right? You're going to want that closer to you. Others aren't. So, and that's where it also comes down to how many ports are in the back versus the front. Some don't have any really in the front.
Yeah.
And some do have a couple. So they're pretty different, like when it comes to Thunderbolt 4 docks. Like, they're not all created the same, and they offer very radically different features, ports, power pass-through. Some are more reliable than others. I think, and Microsoft will be able to sell these through its enterprise service, where companies will want to buy these, as well as, consumers will buy them too. So, that's my thoughts on it.
Real quick, just before we move on from this, do you think maybe one of the reasons why they went with USB-C as well is because limitations of the Surface Connect port mean it can't reach Thunderbolt speeds?
I forgot the numbers on it. I think it's basically equivalent to a Thunderbolt 3, maybe Thunderbolt 4, but I'm not 100% on that. Well, I know it's a pretty powerful port, but it also hasn't itself been updated in many years.
Yeah.
Obviously, the power pass-through for it can go up to 125 watts that we know
way
of.
Higher.
Yeah. So, even with the laptop studio, I don't know if that's necessarily enough power, but that's kind of limits right now with Thunderbolt 4. Thunderbolt 4 is technically 100-watt pass-through, so hitting 96. I've rarely seen any that actually hit 100 watts. They're usually 96 or 98. It's usually because there's sometimes overhead that needs to be accounted for. Now, there is abilities for Thunderbolt 4 to go higher than that that's coming out, but it's like a different standard, and it's a lot more complexity going on there. And I haven't seen any docks that necessarily offer that. If someone knows of one that's like a 200-watt power pass-through or 150-watt, let me know. I'd be curious. Yeah. So
But yeah, I hope Microsoft doesn't remove Surface Connect from future devices. I still like it. I prefer it for charging. It's always just nice to have that safe sort of mechanism where if you trip over the cable, it will just
sure.
come out of the device rather than pulling your device onto the ground. You know, Apple brought back MagSafe. It would be weird for Microsoft to move away from their MagSafe equivalent. But
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
And don't forget, with all the Surface devices, all the new ones with Type C and Thunderbolt 4, you can just recharge through those too if that's your
that's
only
true.
option.
Yeah, yeah.
So you get the best of both worlds. You know, in a pinch, I have no problem charging with Type C either, so it works there
It
too.
could
So
actually. I wouldn't be so surprised if maybe lower end Surface PCs like the Surface Go drop Surface Connect and only use USB-C charging. But for
actually, you know what? I'll
flagships,
also sorry, I'll just answer my own question here. So the Surface Laptop Studio with the GPU in it, I think can pull in what 125 or 135 watts
yeah.
because the Surface Book. Remember, there's actually one charger that's 135 watts, but even the Laptop Studio charger, you can technically, if you're blasting the GPU and CPU 100%, you can drain
Mhm.
faster than the included charger can do. Now that's a
Right.
rare situation, um, but it could happen. So you can actually use like there's a 135 watt, I believe, charger that will fix that. But what I
So,
mean here is you should be able to connect this up to your dock and still use the Surface Connect. And I think the Surface Connect will take power priority, which means you can use a Laptop Studio, get the full 125 watt power versus 96 watt, and you could kind of solve that problem. Now you would have two cables, but that may be one reason why they did it as well, because you can just still use the Surface Connect, which I do believe takes priority over the Type C. I'll need to test that though.
yeah. Yeah, the Surface Dock 2 had a 199 watt PSU, but it passed through to the PC. I think it only went up to 120 or 125. You're right. So yeah, that answers your question, I guess. But yeah, I think that's the whole story for the Surface Dock 3. Of course, it is kind of odd that they just announced this on its own. Like, usually this would probably be reserved for maybe a spring event, which, as we have discussed previously, probably isn't happening given the recent layoffs and the current economic climate. So the Surface Dock 3 has been announced. Now, I do hear there are a couple more accessories that are planned to be announced this spring, most likely in May, a new webcam and a new speaker of some kind. Those will more or less likely be Microsoft-branded products. I'm actually surprised this wasn't Microsoft-branded. I don't know why they chose Surface for this dock, but there you are. But things, no Surface PCs this half of the year. Those have been pushed back into the second half of 2023 at least. So we'll be talking about those at a later date. But for now, we should move on to our next topic. Windows 10X on the Surface Duo. Now, I bring this up only because it's just it's cool to see that this is something that's properly, well, I say properly, working in a way better state now, and is on the way to being something that you might even want to sort of daily drive if you're using a Surface Duo as a sort of secondary companion PC. But essentially, Gustav Montz on Twitter, who has been behind the effort to bring Windows 10 and Windows 11 to the Surface Duo, has released a version of his work for Windows 10X, with the same sort of compatibility in regards to drivers, so things like touch and GPU and whatnot are working. Not everything is working, so right now only one screen works, although he does say it will be possible to enable both screens and enable all of the sort of Surface Neo spanning functionality, which will be really cool to see. Also, no calls. I don't know if that'll actually ever be possible, but LTE I think is already working. If it's not working yet, I think it will be possible, so that would be handy to have in your pocket and just have a Windows PC in your pocket. But yeah, this is just cool to see. And what I want to really highlight is how smooth Windows 10X looks on the Surface Neo. The Surface Duo. When you compare it to Windows 11 and Windows 10 on the Surface Duo, you know, it's a Snapdragon 855. It's not a powerful processor for a desktop OS. And Windows 10X really highlights how much Microsoft did to Windows to make it more mobile. It's a much lighter OS. It's much faster. You can just see it when interacting with it in the videos, like tapping on icons and stuff. The animations are much smoother. Everything about it feels more mobile, and it makes perfect sense. Well, almost perfect sense on a Surface Duo. The only problem, of course, with Windows 10X is
Wasn't made for.
yeah, the
Yeah,
UI
was
still isn't for phone screens. It's just too small. Like, everything is designed for desktop at that point. Had they actually built a UI for mobile, then of course that platform would have made sense. But the shell and all of that, the focus on PC just meant it wasn't going to be viable for the device like Surface Duo. It's still cool to see the performance of it and how much lighter and just faster things are on Windows 10X versus Windows 11. And it basically converts the Surface Duo into a mini Surface Neo. And I think that's cool to see. It's the closest thing many of us are going to get to being able to try out a Surface Neo-like experience with the dual screens and whatnot. Obviously, there's no keyboard accessory for the Duo. It's way too small. But it should be able to sort of have the Wonder Bar, the virtual keyboard and trackpad and stuff on one of the screens when that is fully working. So yes, if you are feeling dareish, you can actually download this and try it yourself. It is not easy. The how-to guide for it is basically a foreign language if you've never done something like this before. So, and the worst thing about it is that you could risk bricking your device. If you do it wrong, it could be game over. You can wipe the memory and it's all gone. So you've got to be careful. Follow it to a T, and good luck. But
yeah, it's not something. I mean, it's true that my Duo is just not doing anything, so no reason I necessarily shouldn't try this. But you're right. There is like one step where you do it wrong, and it would be better if someone did a video, basically, and walk through it. Because like the instructions are good, but they're still not 100% clear, especially because they're like, if you mess this part up, you're gonna brick the device. It's just like, wait, so exactly what do you mean? Yeah, it's not trivial. It does look kind of cool, but you're right. I had some people ask me like, why is this such a big deal? Because I said, kudos to the hard work that went into making this happen. And people's like, why was it hard work? I'm like, well, it wasn't made for an Android phone. Right. It was meant for the Neo. It was like a completely different device running different hardware. It's a pretty big deal that someone was able to get this working on there. I know it's not so much of a stretch because 10X is meant to be a little bit more modern and mobile, but still, it wasn't an easy thing to do. But yeah, it's a cool experience. I kind of wish they would have, we can go back and forth about this. Should they even released it for like a Duo device? But then you still get into the app problem. It's going to be a phone, and it doesn't have phone apps that we need. That people expect.
Had Microsoft gone all in on UWP, then obviously it'd be a different conversation. But because they didn't do that, and they were still relying on Win32, even on 10X, it was a no-go for mobile from day one, and that's really the reason why they didn't do it on the Duo.
And had they positioned Duo as more of a companion device to your PC instead of like a phone, they could have skirted some of those issues. But then you got to ask the question: is a $1,200 companion device that's pretty small and is okay for note taking? It is. I like it for note taking, but it is small.
Yeah.
Would this been something that people buy and still carry a phone with them, right? So it's like it really gets into a real gray area. It would have been cool, but would have been. I mean, I think that, let's be honest, Surface Duo was not really a success even with Android. I think it would have been less success with this on there. So
yeah. I also want to just sort of, I guess, bring it back to the whole Windows Core PC discussion we had last week. This is an example of why I think Core PC is important for Microsoft, because the platform is so much lighter. Again, you can just see it in the videos, just how much smoother, how much lighter Windows is running on a low-end piece of hardware. I call it low-end. It is technically a flagship Qualcomm processor, but you get the point. It's a phone. It's a low-end bit of hardware when you compare it to like an Intel Core i9, for example. Windows is fine on laptop processors and whatnot, but when it comes to the low end stuff on like Intel Celerons and whatnot, Windows Core OS and now hopefully Core PC is beneficial there because it makes those PCs faster and more capable because they're not as bloated and as heavy as current Windows is. So, hopefully in the future we can see more sort of progress towards this modern Windows that was going to be Windows 10X, but sadly wasn't, and through Core PC. So. Well done to Gus for delivering that, and yeah, we'll be following that once dual screen support gets added. I think that's going to be really exciting, especially because most UWP apps do not support spanning at this point, but the Mail app did, if I remember rightly. So that'll be fun. But yes, all right. Now before we move on, real quickly, I'd like to thank this week's sponsor, Indeed. When it comes to hiring, you need to trust your gut, but what if you could give your gut some help? When you want to find top talent fast, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. You can find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, virtual interviews, and assessments. Hate waiting? Indeed's US data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Something I think is actually really cool about Indeed is that the site does the hard work for you. Sponsor a job, and boom, Instant Match shows you candidates whose resumes on Indeed are fitting your job description. With Instant Match, you can start hiring much faster than other competitors. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide who are using Indeed to hire great talent fast. So, Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job description. So, visit Indeed.com/WCP to start hiring now. That's Indeed.com/WCP. Indeed.com/WCP. Terms and conditions do apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you indeed for sponsoring. And now it's time to get back to the news. And Dan, it's your favorite part of the week, AI talk.
Yeah, not a lot going on this week with AI. We do have a lot of coverage, though, on the site in terms of new extensions that have been created for using these apps, Bing Chat, stuff like that. There's a new app, but it's not. I don't know if it's a UWP app, but it's a new app on the Microsoft Store called Easy Chat, one word, Easy Chat AI. And it hooks up with ChatGPT. You do need a private API key, but we have a guide on how to create that. It's very, very easy, actually. And you just do that. I ran out of free stuff, so I had to link up a credit card to it, but it's like so cheap. It's only like maybe 1 cent or something like that. Sometimes, like I already did like one inquiry, and it didn't even register as a cent yet. But it's a dedicated, discrete, like Windows 11 app that is beautiful. It's got acrylic, but it's very simple. That allows you to plug in right into ChatGPT and has a running history and all that kind of stuff. And it's pretty fast and has some of its own unique features and dark mode and stuff. So that's called Easy Chat AI. We also have a bunch of other guides comparing Mid-Journey to Bing Image Creator and all these kind of things. So go check those out in case you're curious. I will say Mid-Journey is certainly much better than DALL-E / Bing Chat. Some of the examples that Rebecca Spear, who wrote up that guide, show us are pretty hilarious. But Mid-Journey does cost money. Bing Chat is free. And, Bing Chat will Bing Image Creator will get
actually real
better.
quick before you move on from that topic. I am curious. Obviously, you mentioned Midjourney. You do pay for. Bing Chat, you don't. But surely the processing power for both is more or less the same, right? It's just an algorithm change, isn't it, between the two services?
Yeah, I mean they use different models for processing. Midjourney is clearly ahead.
Midjourney
I don't know
isn't
in terms of processing
power.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Midjourney uses more processing power,
Maybe.
but
Maybe.
that's something I don't know. So, but it'll be interesting to follow. But yeah, the real big news, at least for me, because I've been kind of waiting for this for a while, is you can now enable Bing Chat right in the Microsoft Edge mobile browsers on iOS and Android. Now, this will be just rolling out probably in the next 2-3 weeks. I don't know, but it's going to be soon. But right now, if you want to use Bing Chat on mobile, you got to use the Bing app or the Start app, which is fine. They're nice apps. They have a lot of stuff in them. It's almost impossible to keep up. But if you're like me, you mostly live in Edge, the browser, and don't want to launch a separate app. So what they did is it's the same thing. It creates the new Bing button right in the middle of the toolbar for quick access. You tap it and you can go right into voice to make a request, or you hit the keyboard button and you can type in the request you want. You can select inspirational, precise, and all that. So it's just the same features, but it's just much more convenient. So how to do this is super easy, right? So anyone can do this. This goes for Android and iOS. Simply go to your address bar, type in edge : // flags. And everybody knows about browsers, know that's pretty much universal. This on Edge, both mobile and desktop, opens up all the hidden features that are in testing in the background. You can find a lot of cool stuff there. So again, Edge colon / flags. And you'll go in there and just type in Bing into the search box, and you'll get a couple hits there. There are a couple things that they're working on. But what you want is the obvious one. It's called New Bing Always Show on Toolbar. And that's exactly what it is. It's set to default, which by default is off. Just click Enabled, and then restart the browser, and it'll pop up. And there's even a sort of walkthrough process. It's like, hey, congratulations, you got this new Bing feature. Here's how it works, and you can start using it right away. So I like this because I just find it way more convenient to use. Like I said, instead of launching a separate app. It's not completely complete yet, although I don't know their entire plan. So right now, if you pin the Edge search widgets in Android to your home screen and you hit the microphone button, it still goes to the older Bing search voice version. So a little wave thing comes up and you ask it and it goes into Bing. It's funny, the chat will pop up over that, but I imagine that microphone will eventually, you hit that, will go right into the Bing chat. I hope it would, but I'm not 100% on what their plans are there. I will also say, as I mentioned, that they're going to roll this out to all, probably in the coming weeks, because it's obviously in flags. And on Android, it's in all the versions of Edge, whether it's production, canary, or dev, doesn't matter. If you're like, oh no, I hate that, don't worry, it is an option. You can go into the settings toolbar and disable it, and you won't have the Bing button, which is probably a little bit more than what they did on Edge Desktop. We do have a guide for Edge Desktop on how to remove it there as well, but this will be much easier for mobile users, so you don't have to have this. I will say, though, I really like it, so I'm kind of glad it's there, and this was a cool flag that was found. So you can even go into that, poke around Edge flags. You're not going to damage your device. You may cause some instability or more CPU consumption than necessary because some of the stuff is being in works. But there's like an always on dark mode, which is kind of cool. That's been around for ages. I'm not sure what their plans are for it, but you can go and turn on always dark mode. You can make Windows Central dark. It's cool, but sometimes you will hit a website where things look off, or maybe you can't see the text or something like that. So it's not 100%. It's kind of like that plug-in lights out. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can find in there. You can see the stuff they're testing, just some updates to widgets and different performances and smooth scrolling, which I don't know if it does anything. So go play with it. But yeah, that's the Bing AI stuff, the Bing chat. I'm excited about this. I kind of want this everywhere, and the more convenient, the better. So have you enabled this at all, Zach?
I literally just enabled it as you were talking. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see.
Nice.
I don't think it's doing the website analysis yet, though, the Bing chat thing. If you're looking at the page on mobile, I don't think that's popped up yet, which is probably why it's not enabled by default yet, because they're still working on it.
Yeah, again, who knows if that's actually coming, because, that's technically different. Yeah, they have different implementations of this stuff, right? So I don't suppose you did my Twitter hack from last week.
No, I did not.
Takes 5 minutes, man. Makes Twitter way better, especially after this week. It's still what's cool about the Twitter hack I did, which, again, if you missed that, it's called Twitter. Was a control panel for Twitter. If you search for that in Windows Central, you get my guide on how to make this for mostly Android. It technically works on iOS, but works better on Android. They combined the check marks with the Twitter Blue this week. So technically those previously verified, we didn't lose our check marks. It's just now a generic, like, this is either a Twitter Blue account or a legacy. It doesn't distinguish.
You and I are the same now, Dan.
No, we're not, though, because if you use my method here for desktop, I can tell who's Twitter Blue and who's original.
God damn it.
It's still hidden there. So I can see, and I tell you what, because it annoys me, because every time I make, and sometimes I can be critical of Elon, and I don't hate him. I just I think he's a brilliant person who's also a dumbass. And that basically describes every human I've ever met on this planet. Yeah. So he's not a god figure. So yeah, he makes a lot of dumb decisions. So sometimes I criticize him, and the people who always rush to defend him, I see they're all Twitter Blue users. I'm like, you simp! Come on! I know you're paying, and now you're one of those. I'm gonna go out there and defend Elon kind of thing. It's just like it's just sad. But yeah, so go. You should go try my hack. Plus, again, if you have a high refresh display for mobile, you're gonna like Twitter way more because it's a high refresh now. It scrolls better, Zach. That's your thing. But anyway. Cool. All right, let's move on. Outlook for Windows updates. I have no idea what this is about, so you can talk about it.
Well, the Outlook for Windows app, the preview app, the Monarch app, as it was codenamed, got some updates this week, some notable updates, which are bringing it further in line with what you would expect for a sort of out-of-box default email client experience on an OS such as Windows. Finally, third-party support. Now, it's only for Gmail accounts as of now, but that's still a big leap forward for them, a big milestone. And they do promise that Yahoo, and iCloud accounts are coming soon. So this is a big sort of moment for them because obviously up until now, the app has only functioned with Microsoft personal or work accounts. And that's kind of a problem for a default email experience, of course, because, if you take a look at any default email client on Android or Mac or iPad, it will allow you to use any email client out there. You sign in or you punch in your credentials and information for the email service you use, and you can use that client, whereas the new Outlook app, which is supposed to replace Windows Mail at some point, couldn't do that. Now it sort of can through Gmail, and then hopefully over time more and more get added as well. And that's nice because that means you can now use the Outlook web interface, which is essentially what it is, with a third-party service such as Gmail or soon iCloud. And so if you prefer Outlook web, but have an iCloud account, for example, that's not been possible before, but now you will be able to do that. So that's pretty cool. Other improvements that they have added include rich editing, spelling, and autocomplete suggestions powered by Microsoft Editor, the ability to send emails with polls to help make decisions quicker, which is only for work and school accounts between, the same sort of enterprise, I guess. Delayed the delivery of an email for up to 10 seconds so you can have the chance to undo sending, which is always great if you have a typo or accidentally forgot someone on an email.
or you're writing something very passive aggressive and you immediately regret sending it.
Yeah, that too. The ability to join Skype or Teams call directly from the new Outlook for Windows, the ability to pin important emails to the top of your inbox, Google Calendar support, the ability to add multiple shared calendars, support for multiple time zones, and adding daily weather in calendar view. So slowly but surely, this app is making its way to being a good email app. The only thing that annoys me about it right now is when you close it, it's done. Like it kills itself. So you don't get any email notifications. It's so annoying. I want to be able to continue getting those. Like Windows Mail is great at that. You can have Windows Mail closed and it still pulls in notifications.
But we've had this discussion too. I actually like that because sometimes I just want to turn my email off.
Sure, yeah, I guess that's fair.
But I get it. It's technically, I think, a limitation of PWA, but one that's been being worked on by the industry. And you can see actually if you go to Edge Flags on the desktop and type in PWA, you'll get a bunch of cool things that they're working on for it. So that's part of this evolving. But yeah, right now, personally, I kind of like it. I did just what's neat about it is the app updates itself. Like you'll get a little up arrow on the icon on their taskbar, telling you that there's an update, and if you close it and reopen it, it just updates itself automatically. So I just did that, and now I didn't have it, but now I do have the ability to add Gmail accounts, which is kind of nice. So
they did
I love this new app. I have had just great luck with it. It looks awesome. It performs well.
It does look nice.
Runs great on ARM. It's just like it's just way better than the original Mail app. So
yeah, they added Mika as well recently to it, so like the top bar is slightly translucent now with blur effects, which is really nice.
Yeah.
They did also say that there are some other things coming soon, including the ability to including more visual and personalization options, a new calendar UI, offline support, and native ICS file type support. So offline support will be a big deal, and that is probably another reason why it hasn't replaced Windows Mail yet, because offline support is a big deal for lots of enterprises. For whatever reason, I don't know why you would want to deal with email offline, but people need it for some reason, and so that's on its way. And,
well, I mean, if you're flying and you open it, you want the emails to be there, not they have to be persistent,
I see. That's a good
right?
point. Yeah.
So you don't want to open your mailbox and everything's just gone because you're not online, right? Yeah. The other thing I really like about this app is it's a nice mix between the mail inbox app that we've had for years and full on overkill
Yeah.
Outlook that's
Yeah.
in Office, which I've always opened like, what is all of this? I just want to send an email. Right? I don't need to like 9,000 scheduling and all that. I get some people want that and need it for work. That's fine. But for consumers, I just think it's way too much. This is mixes both though. This is definitely more powerful than the original inbox mail app. It has way more features on
Yeah.
it,
Oh, yeah.
but it's also not overwhelming features. Like I feel safe here. I can ignore certain things,
I feel
so it's
safe.
like, yeah, I feel safe. Um, and I just like it. Yeah, it's just, and I think it allows them just to do a lot
You're
more
right.
with Edge and integrating with your browser and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, and
kudos, Microsoft.
their goal is to replace Outlook desktop and Windows Mail. Like they want to replace both. Excuse me, with this single client. And I'll be really interested to see how diehard Outlook desktop users feel about that, because they are
Mm.
almost certainly going to be losing out on functionality, because there's no way this new Windows Outlook client is as feature filled as the legacy Outlook desktop app. But I have, as somebody who doesn't use Outlook desktop, I feel like that app is just overkill with features that
Yeah,
people don't use anymore anyway. Like, sure, maybe it's in
yeah.
2005, maybe, but not today. Who knows? I could be wrong. Maybe there are people who are still using every single thing in Outlook, and I'm going to be upset when they eventually kill that off. But to them, I say, get with the times.
Yeah, I mean, what they could just do is they could have a two views of this app, right? They could have like a basic view, which is, what we have now. Then they have like a professional view that adds a bunch of those features in, right? And you switch between them depending on what your preference is, right? Kind of like
Yeah.
even in Word, you can hide a lot of stuff and make things very minimalist, right? You can make Word practically like just a full screen app with a tiny toolbar, or you can just have like the giant toolbars extended and everything
Yeah.
moved around. You can create a custom bar, right? You can. So I think they're kind of moving in that direction, which is fine with me. So nice. All right. Asus ROG. Sorry, sometimes I pronounce it as Rogue, but yeah, Asus ROG, the Republic of Gamers. Oh, such branding. Asus ROG Ally. So this was announced on April 1st, as I mentioned. And some people thought it was a joke for obvious reasons. The day it was announced, press were not given a heads up about this. We had no PR in advance. It was on a Saturday. Like, this is just
Yeah,
not
that's
like the
wild.
way things are announced. Plus, people were kind of parsing ally to be a lie,
That's
which I
great.
thought was, yeah. So it's like, so people were doubting it. That said, they did link to a Best Buy page where you could sign up for it. And that seemed weird because, like, how would you loop Best Buy into this quote unquote joke? So then I started thinking this was probably real. And because that's how much pushback they eventually came, I said, yeah, no, it's a real thing. It's happening. So what's the deal here? Well, let's compare it to Steam Deck. Both 7-inch displays. Aspect ratio, though, is 16 by 9. Steam is 16 by 10. I'm okay with 16 by 10, but it's true. Most legacy games are 16 by 9. We'll fill up that screen a little bit more, right? Resolution is higher, 1920 by 1080 versus 1280 by 800. The display is brighter, 500 nits versus 400 nits, and the refresh rate is 120 hertz versus 60 hertz. So this is a much more powerful device. It's running a custom 4 nanometer APU Zen 4 chip with RDNA 3. So it's going to be a very unique performance device. It looks nice. It doesn't have the haptic touch areas that the Steam Deck has, which is sometimes good for older legacy games that it's meant to be a mouse and keyboard kind of replacements. Those so this just has traditional dual joysticks, the Xbox AB buttons, and a D-pad, as well as some dedicated side buttons for. It has 2 buttons on the back and a couple buttons dedicated to menus and all that kind of jazz. It has 2 front-facing speakers. It's not as ergonomic apparently compared to Steam Deck, which has, but it's also flatter and a little bit smaller. So this is a Dave 2D got one to play with. We don't know a lot about it. Like, the performance hasn't been measured, but it is supposed to be much more performant than Steam Deck. Obviously, the specs I rallied off there, and the display performance is going to be much better. Which brings up the price. We don't know. Steam Deck is what, $499, I believe. This may be, or is it $399? I don't know. I forgot what Steam Deck is these days. But this will probably, I can't see, be the same price. That'll have to be more expensive. Maybe $599, maybe $699, right? So Is that going to be worth it for some?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a really hardcore gamer, like that 120 hertz brighter 16 by 9 display is going to be because you're going to need the hardware to power that, and presumably this does.
Hmm.
So that's a really kind of cool thing. What are you going to say?
I will say that if it is $5.99, then I don't think it's fair to call it a Steam Deck competitor. I think what makes the Steam Deck so popular is the fact that it's $3.99, and for what you get for that price is actually quite great.
Yeah.
But they obviously had to pare things back to reach that price point. The 720p display being one of them. But like that's why the Steam Deck is so popular, because it was, when it was announced, only $3.99. Like bloody, that's amazing. That's an excellent price. $5.99. Suddenly, I'm less interested. Like I don't know about $5.99.
Yeah, it's going to really depend on your how much you use it.
That's right.
I would still maybe possibly interested just because I love the ideas, and I think it's okay to, and again in the market to have options. I would also say a difference here. Steam Deck is also very successful because of its tight integration with Steam, which
Right.
is the default, I would say, PC service that people use for games. That it just has a lot of love. I like it. It's got all sorts of cool back end stuff with you can track how long you played, and it's got different types that you can track your achievements and social stuff. Like they have sales. It's just a cool service, and because of that, the Steam OS that it runs is just it's pretty good. Like it could be
Yeah.
better. Steam itself, I honestly find overwhelming sometimes, just to even do simple basic things on the website. But the version that's on the Steam Deck, the Steam OS, is actually very intuitive. It's a very nice interface with all that, including if you want to go to the store and buy something or just view your library. It just works well. This is going to be running Windows 11, which
Right.
for some will be a selling point. You're wrong,
Yeah.
but I mean, I shouldn't say completely wrong. The benefit there, of course, is you can run all the other installers like Blizzard and
Right.
all the ones out there. You can technically do that in Steam Deck anyway, but you can be able to run all the games. The problem is it's still a 7-inch screen. You're going to probably need an external keyboard, a mouse initially to get that stuff going. It's not that convenient. This is the same thing I had with the Razer Edge, where it worked great with Xbox Game Pass because Game Pass is console games, and console games are just way easier to manipulate on that kind of device. But if you go to something like NVIDIA GeForce Now, which allows you to run you can connect that to Steam Deck and all the other types of services, you get hardcore PC games, but you won't get hardcore PC games, meaning like sometimes you launch the game and it's like, please accept our EU or EULA, and like we got to download a driver update, and like you get all these little
Yeah. Yeah.
screens that you just don't get. So there are definitely trade-offs here. So it's going to also come down to how good of a now, I shouldn't say this isn't like raw Windows 11. They do have their own custom UI that's running on top of it to manage
Interesting.
your games.
Okay.
Uh, but the question is going to come down to how good is that, right? How good and simple is that for managing your games
Yeah.
to get in them versus what Steam does? So it's going to be interesting. I'm glad to see the competition. Like I said, there should be different price points here. Yeah, maybe not as many people will buy a $650 or $700 device, but there are going to be people who do want that, right? And I think they should have that option because Steam has been pretty clear they're not updating it anytime soon. So like
Yeah.
they're going to get they're going to keep it for a couple of years, and they said because it's very difficult. Like people are like, give a 120 hertz OLED display. Yeah, sure, it'd be nice, but they're like the engineering behind that is not simple for us to do. You can't just drop in the display, right? So, and plus it'll drive up the cost. So they got a lot to consider. So I'm excited about this thing.
I'm Microsoft needs to start like adapting Windows for these kind of devices. I think there's enough of them now where it would warrant
Yeah.
the resources. Like Windows should have a dedicated gaming interface, like an Xbox dashboard for handheld, but running on
Sure.
Windows. Obviously, they need that. I don't know why they don't have that. They've already got it for like they've worked on that tablet mode. Like they have a tablet mode now for tablets. Why don't they do one?
And
for
they have the
game
overlay
devices?
for gaming.
Yeah,
on
the
the
overlay's
device.
good for controllers, but you still
Yeah.
really need a big sort of. It's for PC. It's for monitors. It's not for handheld.
Yeah.
They need something that sort of replaces the Windows shell and is a launcher for games and stuff and apps, which Windows doesn't currently have. And I would hope they are working on, especially if they want to sort of ship their own Xbox handheld at some point. because obviously if Asus is doing this and the Steam Deck is proven to be very popular, Nintendo Switch has obviously been around for ages. Handheld gaming is a thing. It's not like a niche thing. It's a thing.
Yeah, I love it. Like
Yeah.
I use both the Steam Deck and Edge quite frequently on the couch.
Yeah.
I've been using the Edge a little bit more just because I've been playing Vampire Survivor hardcore. But I'll also say the other benefit to this device, according to Dave 2D, is the noise. It's very quiet. Apparently, it only peaks at like 20 decibels, which the Steam Deck was 38 decibels. And he explains it correctly that that's a logarithmic change. In other words, it's a big difference between 38 and 20. To put that in perspective, if a laptop under load is below, like at or below 50 decibels, that's pretty good. That's so if you hear fans on a laptop, that's gonna be like around 50 decibels, especially like when your head's away from it, right? But they're hitting 20. Like he said, he had to put his ear up to it to basically hear, and he does a good sound comparison between the two. So not only is it like more powerful, but it's quiet too, despite the fact it has, I believe, 2 fans in it. But he says he opened it up too, and the SSD, it's going to be easy to upgrade for users too, and they did a really nice job, looks like, on the thermals. We don't know about battery life either. It could be similar to Steam Deck. Maybe it's a little bit worse, so that's going to be a thing as well. Steam Deck's battery life varies. If you're playing Vampire Survivor like me, you get hours. If you're going to go play Doom, you're going to get a few hours, maybe 2, maybe 90 minutes, right? So it really depends on how much GPU you're going to use there. But I think this is cool. I think we'll see more of this. I tweeted out how Dell had Project UFO back at CES 2020. Itself was a handheld gaming machine powered by Intel. It was a concept. That was the last we heard of it. So they got to be still sitting on that, thinking about doing something, probably waiting for the right Intel chip for it to come along, as well as pricing and all that. But that's out there. I know other companies, other PC makers have had, I mentioned this before, it still has never been released by another laptop maker. They made a cloud gaming handheld that was kind of similar to the Logitech one. I held it, ran it. It was cool. Wasn't released. I don't know the status of that. So I think we'll see more of these come to market. And I wouldn't be surprised, if Microsoft eventually releases its own. I think these are cool. We're getting to the point now where hardware can do what we want with these while also offering a differentiator, which is the ability to play PC games. Whether that's local PC games that you download to the device, which itself is pretty powerful, that you could run Doom on the Steam Deck is pretty insane and awesome. But also now with cloud gaming as an option, and you can get smaller devices with higher resolution displays like the Razer Edge is also a neat thing. So this is going to be a cool market to watch. I'm really excited about it.
Me too.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, I guess that technically does it for the podcast. And we do have some time here left. So I guess we can do a thing of the week. Zach, do you have a thing of the week?
Do I have a thing of the week? I don't think I do, sadly. I guess we can do an update on Mandalorian. It's getting better. Have you started watching it yet?
Nope.
Okay. Well,
I heard there were a bunch of like cameos in the last episode. And a lot of people were like, why? But
it's quite jarring.
Don't ruin
I didn't
it.
mind it. Yeah, I won't ruin it. But it's just the fact that it's who they are is quite jarring. But I think they fit in the story fine, so it wasn't an issue in that way. But yeah, no, there's been a lot of references to like the prequels and stuff as well, which has been kind of interesting. If you were a prequel fan, you'll probably appreciate the series quite a bit. But other than that, it is slowly getting better. Still not too sure what the sort of like where we're going with it. Like I don't know what the end goal for the season is yet, but I guess we're getting there. I don't know how many episodes are going to be in this season. I'm guessing 10. Maybe I don't know.
I think there was 8, but I could be wrong.
8,
yeah, I don't know. I think there's definitely fatigue going on with superhero movies in general.
Well,
and Star Wars stuff
is around the corner, isn't it? I wonder.
Yeah, and that's gonna be the exception. I bet that will do well because that's not your typical action hero type movie. Like, and I love the Guardian series, and really love the director. I think he's amazing. He's taking over DC now, which I think is a really good thing. But yeah, Guardians is just like, I just find it a great movie. They're funny, they're interesting. This one's 2.5 hours too, so it's gonna be a pretty enjoyable treat.
There was a new Into the Spider-Verse trailer this week as well. I don't know if you saw
that.
That looks amazing. I'm so excited for that film. The art style, everything. It's just amazing.
Yeah, no, it looks really good. It's gonna be a good story too. For me, well, I watched 4 movies in the last week,
Wow, look
and
at
so
you.
yeah, yeah. And these are some of the okay. Most of these you probably, I guarantee, probably have not heard of. And I don't mean you, I mean the audience. I know Zach hasn't because he's too young. So one of them is Coma. So Coma, I think people have definitely heard of. It was based on a book that came out in 1978. Stars Michael Douglas, uh, and it takes place here in Boston. Actually, by the way, if you're squeaking, that's my dog. She just picked up her toy. Sorry about that. But it happens in Boston hospital here, and it's people are inexplicably ending up in comas, and there's like a conspiracy, and it's just a cool story that's done really well. Great acting, amazing cast in it. That has some great visuals too in it. That's been pretty legendary. So that's called Coma. You can, I think you can rent that. It was on HBO Max, but I think they took it off, which is unfortunate. Another one I saw is called Prophecy, not The Prophecy, but Prophecy. This also came out in 1979. It was John Frankenheimer directed it. This is I like this one because uh, in the late 70s, going to the early 80s, environmentalism got really big. This was post Silent Spring, which came out, I believe, in the 60s. But environmentalism, this idea that we're destroying the environment and there are going to be repercussions for it, became really seeped into the pop culture. And this was one movie that was like that. A year later, I believe, was Chud was released, the Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers, which is it's a more corny movie, but still kind of fun. Also, that dealt with like nuclear waste being stored and people being exposed to it. There's also the Toxic Avenger, right? So all this stuff kind of came out, but this movie is actually really pretty good. And John Frankenheimer is actually a really good director. But this one takes place, I think I want to say in Canada, and it involves indigenous people, uh, which was a really cool sub story between like the white people and the indigenous people and how they were like against each other and they couldn't get along, and deforestation as well as destruction on the environment. And there's like a mutagen, they call it, and all this. And there's one scene in it I post online as a GIF that's unintentionally hilarious. The way this one person dies. It was just really, really cool. But uh, that's a great movie. So you can rent that one. I think that's as well. All right, Abby, relax. Come on. She really wants to go out. The other one was this one's originally called Holocaust 2000, but it was also called The Chosen. This was Kirk Douglas, same year as Coma. So Kirk Douglas was in this one, and boy, did he commit to the role. This one involves a nuclear power plant being built into the Middle East, and Kirk Douglas, his son, is the Antichrist.
What?
And it's about bringing the end of the world. Yeah, it's a wild plot, and it's like, but it's cool. It's done well. I really enjoyed that one. Very different movie. And then finally, this one you can actually go watch for free online through the Internet Archive, and it's called Colossus: The Forbin Project. Also based on a book. It's a British movie, I believe, and this is 1978, I want to say as well. And this is like a 1970s version of War Games, but this is very relevant right now. This is about people creating a supercomputer that's basically AI, and it connects up to the entire United States infrastructure, including controlling our ICBMs and nuclear capabilities, which always seems like a brilliant idea. And they bring it online, and it quickly discovers that the Soviet Union have their own kind of computer as well. And it's like, oh, and then the two computers want to talk, and they do, and they unite against humanity. It's like, and in the middle, it gets a little wonky because it almost becomes a little bit funny, but I won't ruin the ending. I'm just going to say the ending was perfect because 1970s movies I like because they're just so much more cynical because of the time. That's again, the movies in the 70s were just a reflection of that current culture in that time. The 70s were dark. It was a hangover from the 60s. The economy was bad, gas prices were high, and the environment was getting destroyed. There was pollution, and so the way this movie ends, I'm just gonna say it was awesome. Like it was just like, okay, well. But that's again, Colossus: The Forbin Project. It's also sometimes just called the Forbin Project. But if you look it up, you can actually watch it for free on the Internet Archive. And what I did was I went on my Xbox, I opened Edge, and you can go to the website and hit just play and then make it full screen. You can just watch it like that on Xbox. It's only 720p, but it's worth it. It's a cool movie. It ties into everything that's going on today. and it was just so classic 70s computer sci-fi stuff. I really, really enjoyed it. So there you go. Those are my recommendations for this week. All right. I guess we'd go do Q&A now with the audience. Although, Zach, I'm probably going to pop off so you can do Q&A with everybody
Sure.
because I got to go take this one out for her walks. But as always, you can catch us on Fridays, typically 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel at Windows Central. You can also listen to the recorded version. On the live version, we do Q&A with the audience and interact with them, so go check that out. You can also watch the video and previous podcasts there. Follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, and follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. Ask us questions and all that stuff. Give us feedback. Let us know how we're doing. As always, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Nice.
All right, let me name this, and then I'm going to pop off.
Okay, cool. If anyone else has any questions, I'll hang around for a few minutes and try my best to answer them. My camera will freeze here when Dan hangs up, because that's just the way it is.
I did not know that. That's really funny.
Yeah. I tried to put.
I mean, I could leave my camera on. Just turn my camera off and mute things.
Sure. Yeah, if you want to do that, that'll be easier. And then I can just
I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm just taking her out. So, okay, I'll do that. I'll catch you guys later.
All right, bye. Okay, so any questions? There are a few here. One for Dan, who is no longer here, so I can't answer that one. Is there any sense in buying a Suraj? I have no idea what that is. Sorry. What do you think of the news from Jeff Grubb that there's something wrong with Square Enix and Microsoft? I don't know. I saw Jez wrote about that earlier, but yeah, I'm not sure. Apparently, Square Enix keeps releasing games, and a number of them are available on every platform except Xbox. And there seems to be no obvious reason why. The current theory is that there's just a bit of a breakdown between Microsoft and Square Enix, and from a sort of relationship partnership perspective, and I don't know what that could be. Maybe Square Enix isn't too happy with the Activision Blizzard deal. I don't know, but yeah, they're putting their foot down and not releasing games on Xbox for some reason. Is the OG Surface Duo worth picking up for 300 quid? Yes, I think so. I think it's a good companion device, and it's just good for the experiments if you're planning to put Windows on it. Is buying a Surface Duo 3 in 2023 worth it? Yes, for the same reason. If you're planning to mess around with it and whatnot, then sure. If you're planning to use it as a main phone, I think it's less worth it because it's not a good phone. It's missing NFC for contactless. It's missing... what is it else? It's missing a good camera, which is kind of important for camera phones these days. Oh, sorry. Yeah, back to your question, Martino. Is there any sense in buying a Surface Pro X? That's what you meant originally. So I think from a hardware perspective, it's a better product than the Surface Pro 9 5G. The Pro 9 5G is thicker, it's heavier, it's less sexy, I guess is for lack of a better word. The Pro 9 is the Pro X is the thinnest Surface Pro of that sort of time period, at least. Actually, I think it is the thinnest. Is it thinner than the Surface RT? It's got to be close. But it's the nicest Surface Pro looking design. The only problem, of course, is it's running a processor from 2019, which probably means it's not going to be supported for much longer. I do think it will be getting firmware updates until the end of 2024, or at least the middle of 2024. But you know, will it support Windows 12, for example? I don't know. That is a question that we just don't have the answer to, and won't know until end of next year when Windows 12, air quotes, Windows 12 starts rolling out. So if you can get it for cheap, if you can get a Pro X for less than $500 or pounds, or okay, if you can get it for less than $600 or less than £500, then I think it's worth it, because it's a great little sort of lightweight computing device for like email and whatnot. Can the Qualcomm's upcoming ARM processor for Windows compete with M2 and M3, and when will it be released? Qualcomm seems to think it will compete with whatever Apple is shipping at the time when the Qualcomm chip is ready. When it will be ready is anyone's guess. The last rumor was end of this year, but that probably means we won't see it in new hardware until late or early next year at the very earliest. So, and we're not going to know if it actually does beat Apple or match Apple performance until we get the devices in hand, because unless the benchmarks leak on Geekbench, which I think some already did, but they were like slower than the HCX Gen 2 or whatever it is currently, which I'm guessing means either drivers weren't optimized or they were running it as a VM. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Do you expect any significant new feature or bug fixes for Duos? Oh boy, I don't know. There's movement on that front has slowed quite a bit, I think. I don't know really what the plan is going forward for existing Duo customers. I did try to ask Microsoft officially if there was an update on, whether or not Android 13 was on the way or whatever, and they just gave me a no comment, more or less. So it is not looking great. Last year there were plans for some stuff like inking on the lock screen, Duo Connect, which was this sort of the ability to dock to an external monitor and boot up Windows 365 essentially. Those things, I have no idea what's happened to them. I am less confident that they're going to ship as planned. I've heard a few things that's kind of worrying. One, and I think I mentioned this last year, maybe I didn't. Last week, the team that was working on Duo OS, a lot of them were pulled away from Duo last year to work on something called Teams Rooms on Android. Microsoft built an AOSP version of Android specifically for Teams Rooms on Android as a product. That has been announced now, and that's supposed to start shipping this year. And it's a big deal for the Android org, whatever it's called, the Microsoft Android and Experiences division, because it's a moneymaker for them, apparently. Like, obviously, they can start selling this version of Android to OEMs now who want to ship Teams Rooms on Android things, whereas the Duo was less of a moneymaker. So hopefully those people who were moved over to the AOSP project can now move back to the Duo so they can start working on features for their existing customers. But that's wishful thinking. I really am not kind of worried. I'm really not holding my breath, rather, for any major things going forward. Obviously, it will get Android probably 14. I don't know if it will get Android 13. I don't think it's worth them putting the effort into doing that, because Android 12L and Android 13 are already quite similar. If they could jump from 12L to 14, I think they will do that instead, because I think it makes more sense. It's much more worthy of an upgrade. But we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens there. But yeah, the only confident stuff I have is really about the hardware, and even then it's early days, so I can't really talk about much. It's a shame. It's a really bad situation. Microsoft has messed up big time in regards to the Duo. It's not even funny, and nobody should give them the light of day, to be honest. I'm very disappointed in what they've done with how they've treated Duo customers, with lack of updates and lack of hardware. More importantly, not even, the fact that they're moving from dual screen to single screen isn't even that big of a deal. As long as the product line, or the vision rather, keeps going, I don't mind. But what they're currently doing with this whole thing, where it's like, yeah, we're kind of in limbo, essentially, unacceptable. I'm really, really disappointed, and it's egg on our faces, because they did this with Windows Phone, and we fell for it again, and it's just not fair. So everybody should go buy a Pixel Fold. That's my advice. If you really are looking for phone advice in regards to foldables. If Microsoft were going into the handheld business, would you expect them to release a separate core PC-based version of Windows, or use the legacy Windows? How would gaming work on core PC in general? These are great questions. I don't know. It's the short answer to that. Gaming, I don't think will benefit too much from core PC, because it requires, especially in regards to mods, I have no idea how that's going to work. Maybe they'll figure it out, but I don't know, personally. Most games will run in that compatibility layer, though. I'm almost certain. Because actually, no, maybe not. I don't know. We'll have to see. Do you think AMD should do an ARM APU? And if they do, can they beat Apple on efficiency? I think anybody should try everything to compete with Apple. There's no point not competing. Might as well try and do something better, right? This was my fear, that they have pulled engineers away from the Duo for other things like this Bing chat integration everywhere. Yeah, and it has happened, I'm told. That the Duo team was essentially gutted. And I say gutted as in, like, they were pulled elsewhere. They were like, hey, we need you people to work on this over here because this is currently more pressing than a device that has 60,000 users or whatever it is, Yeah, it's a shame because obviously the hardware was a passion project for the Surface team with regards to Duo. They clearly wanted to do a phone and they wanted to make a unique phone, but the market has almost rejected the Duo as a concept. They don't see the value in it. They don't want to pay the same prices they would pay for a foldable or for a device that has a gap down the middle. All these sort of chronic issues with the form factor are, I guess, maybe sort of depress the Surface team a bit. Oh, this is a shame. And obviously, from a business perspective, it doesn't make more sense for them to keep making it because Microsoft is a business at the end of the day. They make the stuff they build, they ideally want to make money on, and it's okay for the first few generations for an idea to not make money if they can see that it will eventually make money. For example, the Surface Pro. But I think the Duo, they genuinely don't see a way forward for this device to be affordable enough for people to want to buy it and in a position where it can make them money. So, at this point, it's a lost cause. And so they want to change form factor. But even then, with the current economic climate and all the other stuff, layoffs, it's hard. The Go 4 was supposed to launch next month, and it's not now. They've pushed that back because of the recent layoffs and just things being moved around. It's real rough. So, yes, we'll have to wait and see. I do hope the world recovers and Microsoft gets confident enough again to start shipping unique form factors. Because I think Surface's biggest problem right now is that they're not innovating enough anymore. Surface was the whole point of Surface originally was it was supposed to be like unique hardware doing different stuff that others weren't doing. And that was also kind of the point of it being a low market product. They weren't always expected to sell in volume, and now it's kind of like they kind of are. Like, if they're not releasing something that's able to match the Surface Pro in sales, is there any point in releasing it? And I don't know. I guess they don't think so anymore. Hopefully that changes though. I agree. It's worse now than it has ever been to be a Duo user. Yeah, it really is. I mean, I'm still using mine, but I'm ready to jump ship. I will be buying the the Pixel Fold when that gets announced. The worst part to me is that the team didn't look like they were careless about this, but due to all leadership decisions, employees being fired, etc., it certainly didn't help. Yep, it's leadership's fault. It's the higher ups who are mismanaging a lot of stuff. Like, if I was in charge of Windows. If I was in charge of Microsoft, let's generalize it to that, I would obviously be doing the boring Azure stuff. But I would also have, just once a week, I'd have a meeting with whoever's in charge of Windows and Surface and Android at Microsoft. I'd be like, what's the plan here? And I'd tell him what the plan is because I want him to do my vision. And my vision is this should be a cohesive thing. Like, we're doing Windows. We've got the Surface PCs. That's great. That's doing well, whatever. We're doing this Android thing now for some reason, since we're not doing Windows anymore. Let's stick with it. We'll stick with Android. I agree that's the decision to do. But can we put more effort into it? Can we actually build this Surface Duo 3 as the first party Microsoft Android experience instead of giving it all to Samsung? Which I realize there's probably a Samsung partnership there with lots of billions of dollars on the table. Here's what I'll say to that. I'll say that, okay, fine. The Samsung can have copy and paste in the system tray or whatever it is that makes them have technically more features. That's fine. They can keep doing that. But let's do Android properly. Let's support it properly. Let's build a community around this. Let's make it an aspirational device. And for some reason, they just don't do that. Surface is to try to act like Apple, where they're like, once we release, we'll come out and do an event, and then you won't hear from us again forever until our next event. which is the wrong way to do things. They need to be more like the Windows Insider program, which, to be fair, is still they have their own communication issues, but they're more open. At least they're more active on Twitter, for example. I know if I have a bug in Windows, I can tweet a bunch of people on Twitter and get that sort of in on their radar. A bug on the Duo, I have no idea who am I tweeting for a bug on the Duo. Nobody. I don't know anyone. Like, there's no public facing person or group of employees for that. And I guess that's the other problem with Microsoft Surface and Android in general. How many Surface Studio users compared to Surface Duo users? I don't know. I imagine they're probably closer than you think. Isn't your vision to ship all prototypes first to this house in the UK? Yes. My vision would be to give me all of the devices you're working on, even the ones that don't work. Any chance Microsoft and Google work together on Windows integration of Nearby Share? Unlikely, considering they're both sort of competing for this control of, who has control of the ecosystem experience. Is it Microsoft, who can adapt to Android, or is it Google, who can force Windows to do as it's told? Like, which experience is better? Is I guess the question. Are you optimistic about Windows 12? I am, yeah. I'm excited about the platform stuff and possibly some of the UI updates. But yeah, we'll see. We will see. Do you think Microsoft will release a single screen phone? They've definitely prototyped it. It even has a code name, which I cannot share. But yes, they want to do a normal slab phone. But the discussion we just had makes it quite difficult for them. You got to remember, Surface hardware team wants to do everything. They want to release a watch. They want to release a phone. They want to release a monitor. It's all the other bits around releasing that is a problem. Marketing problem. Funding problem. Software teams problem. They're busy doing other stuff, working on products that make money. Why should they be pulled away to work on a single screen phone that may only sell 10,000 units? These are the resource issues, I guess, or the resource limitations Microsoft has, because it's not just Surface wants to make something, therefore Surface makes it. Surface has to work with other teams to make it a product. Otherwise, you'd just be shipping metal and circuitry with no software because nobody else at Microsoft worked on it. Can we expect an AMD APU powered Surface this year? I do not know. All right, final call for questions, and here's time to head off. Have you ever seen the Jonas Danehert Surface Phone concepts? Look amazing. I have not. I've seen a lot of Surface Phone concepts, but I don't think... Maybe I have, and I just don't recognize the name. Right, no more questions. In that case, I will be heading off. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.